Assalamu alaikum, welcome back. International politics with MCQs and one liners. First of all, who propounded the new realist theory in international politics? Kenneth Walls. Who formulated the neoliberal traditions in international relations? Joseph Nye and Robert Keohane. The early post Cold War international order was based on that was when unipolarity was there after disintegration. Globalization is a process of creating a more unified economic community among the world's people. Mikhail Gorbachev introduced perestroika and glasnost in which year? 1985. Complex interdependence is different for it accepts the role of the following transnational actors along with economic and institutional instruments. Which of the following is a key factor to distinguish liberalism from realism? Realists see liberals as idealists who ignore the basic facts about human nature. Third world term refers to economically less developed countries in Asia, Africa, and Latin America. The disintegration of Soviet Union ushered in the end of Cold War, bringing power vacuum. Name the American president who advocated for the Atoms for Peace program. Eisenhower. A situation in which significant power is distributed among the three or more states is known as multipolarity. One for all and all for one is a concept related to collective security. The principle on which humanitarian intervention works, that is right to protect. The first chair of international politics was headed by Alfred Zimmern. Alfred Zimmern. Detent means the following relaxation of military tensions between two or more states. Which of the following theorists is associated with the dependency school of international politics or relations? Andre Gunder Frank, who opined that liberalism is strongest contemporary challenge to realism. Caporaso. The world politics is driven by self-interest. Relate to which of the following theory? Realist, realism. Who is the author of the book End of History and Last Man? Francis Fukuyama. Who wrote the book Stable Peace? Kenneth Boulding. From the names given below, identify the radical dependency theorists Andre Gunder Frank and Samir Amin. The dictum imperialism is the highest stage of capitalism was propounded by Vladimir Lenin. What is neorealism? An attempt to restate the basic ideas of realism in a more scientific form. According to many realists, how is international peace best secured? By creating a balance of power between states. The Soviet equivalent to NATO was Warsaw Pact. United Nations replaced League of Nations after its charter was signed in June 1945. The Council for Mutual Economic Assistance, Comecon, was set up by USSR in the year 1949. The Marshall Plan is also known as European Recovery Plan. The two key post-war powers which played significant role during Cold War were USA and Soviet Union. The term Cold War was first coined by Bernard Baruch. An umbrella organization for European Communist parties founded in September 1947 was Cominform. So Cominform Communist Diaries USSR. The term containment was coined by George Kennan, America. The US policy to provide military and economic aid to countries threatened by communism was called Truman Doctrine. The Truman administration unveiled the so-called Truman Doctrine on 12th of March 1947. The right of USSR, Soviet Union, to intervene in the affairs of communist countries in order to protect communism is known as Monroe Doctrine. The Berlin blockade happened in the year 1948. Warsaw Pact was an alliance set up in 1955. Organization of Soviet bloc's equivalent of NATO was Warsaw Pact. USSR's Comecon was Soviet-dominated economic organization. In April 1949, the NATO Atlantic Treaty Organization was signed by Canada, US, and Western European states. The Warsaw Pact was dissolved in June 1991. Berlin Wall that separated the East and West Germany was constructed in the year 1962. The European Community eventually changed its name to European Union in 1992 by Treaty of Maastricht. The word for a permanent relaxation of tensions between East and West during the Cold War is detente, that is a French term. The term detente is used to mean permanent relaxation of tension between East and West. The Bay of Pigs invasion occurred in the year 1961 and the month was April. Bay of Pigs invasion was against Fidel Castro of Cuba. The famous Cuban Missile Crisis happened in the year 1962. Important Treaty of European Union, that is Treaty of Lisbon. Lisbon, the capital city of Portugal. So Treaty of Lisbon was signed in the year 2009. British exit from European Union, that is Brexit, took place on 31st of January 2020. Indian economic reforms took place in the year 1991. Treaty of Versailles was signed on 28th of June 1919. The 20 Years Crisis 1919 to 1939 book is written by UK professor E. H. Carr. According to whom, world is dangerous and insecure place where violence is regrettable yet unavoidable. That is realists. Realism defines state in terms of power. When states are exercising power towards each other, that is known as realpolitik or power politics. Three important elements of realism are self-help, statism, and survival. And there are 6 principles of realism. According to realists, state is concentration and instrument of power. Morgenthau's realist theory or realism theory began after Cold War by Politics Among Nations in 1948. So after beginning of Cold War, realism emerged through Politics Among Nations of Morgenthau. And it was during New Cold War, when theory of international politics was given by Kenneth Walls, that neo-realism emerged in 1979 in the world affairs. Important Morgenthau's books include Politics Among Nations 1948, In Defense of National Interest 1951, Purpose of American Politics 1960. 2 important features of realism are interest and power, and this interest can be achieved in terms of power. And structural extension of realism is neorealism, that is given by Kenneth Walls. Neorealism is also known as contemporary realism and structural realism. And this neorealism views states as security maximizers rather than power maximizers. But in order to become security maximizers, you need to increase your power. Structural realism divides into 2 camps. It got divided into 2 camps. Those who argue that states are security maximizers were known as defensive realists, defensive realism, that is Kenneth Walls and Jervis. And those who consider states as power maximizers were offensive realists, offensive realism, John Mearsheimer and Gilpin. General features of neorealism include interventions, interdependence, national capabilities, security, survival, structure, anarchy, and hierarchy. Father of neorealism is Kenneth Walls. Important books of Kenneth Walls include Man, State and War 1959, Theory of International Politics 1979. As far as neoliberalism is concerned, it spread through GATT, IMF, World Bank, etc. by adopting global economic and political agenda that is known as Washington Consensus, that is structural adjustment program that was devised and codified by John William. Core concept of neoliberalism is society should be shaped by free market, deregulated economy or deregulation, privatization and globalization. Complex interdependence term was claimed by Raymond Leslie Boyle in 1925. Complex interdependence concept got popularized by the work of Richard and Cooper in 1968. Complex interdependence has main exponents in the form of Robert Keohane and Joseph Nye. A critical response to realism. So complex interdependence that was given by Keohane and Nye, that was considered a critical response to realism, and this very complex interdependence is known as institutionalism in Brawley readings. As far as Robert Keohane and Joseph Nye are concerned, complex interdependence theory, power and interdependence, world politics in transition 1977 was their main work. The main feature of complex interdependence was less and minor role of military force. Less and minor role of military force. Less and minor role of military force in resolving conflicts in globalized world is essential feature of complex interdependence. World system theory was given by Immanuel Wallerstein. Dependency theory was given by Andre Gunder Frank. NATO has 30 members right now. CENTO is also known as Baghdad Pact, and originally it was known as Middle East Treaty Organization, that is MITO. Detent has its origin from 1908. Detent period initially was during Cold War from 70 to 79. New Cold War lasted from 80 to 85, and new detent emerged from 1985 till 1990. End of Cold War took place during disintegration in 1991. China-Russia war took place in 1969. Chinese economic reforms took place in the year 1978, and the leadership was Deng Xiaoping. World Trade membership to China in the year 2001. Belt and Road Initiatives, formerly known as OBOR, One Belt One Road Initiative by China, was adopted by Chinese government in 2013. Japan became United Nations member in 1956. Economic reforms in Japan took place in 2013 by Shinzo Abe, leader known as Abenomics. India signed Panchshir with China in 1954. India signed Tashkent Declaration after 1965 war with Pakistan at Uzbekistan due to intervention of USSR in 1966 on 10th of January. Shimla Agreement with Pakistan took place in 1972 after Bangladesh War of 1971, and the agreement was signed by Zulfikar Ali Bhutto and Indira Gandhi. India's neighborhood policy, that is Gujral Doctrine, in 1996, as Inder Kumar Gujral was then foreign minister of Devi Gowda cabinet. Agra Summit between India and Pakistan was signed in 2001 by Vajpayee and Musharraf. India's founding father for name was Jawaharlal Nehru. Indo-USSR Treaty of Friendship was signed in August 1971. Indo-US nuclear deal took place in 2008. Extended neighborhood policy was given by Vajpayee. Look East policy that was given by P.V. Narasimha Rao in 1992 got replaced in 2014 by Act East policy under PM Modi. Look West policy was given by Dr. Manmohan Singh in 2005. Quad, that is quadrilateral security and strategic dialogue between US, Japan, Australia, and India, that was launched in 2007 initially and lastly from 2017. The headquarters of Quad are in Sussex, Wisconsin. Malabar Exercise 2021 took place in Bay of Bengal. US and India initially were there in Malabar exercises, but now Australia and Japan too are the part of Malabar exercises. India's first nuclear test for peaceful purposes, that was Pokhran first, was tested in 1974 May, and the code name for that was Smiling Buddha. And Pokhran second, that is India's second nuclear test in the year 1998, and that was code named as Operation Shakti.